Women Voters of Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We do not support or oppose candidates or parties. The advocacy arm of the League may take positions on issues such as ballot measures. However, this forum is presented by the Voter Services and Education arm of the League, which does not take positions or advocate for them. But first, we will start by taking a moment of silence to honor and reflect on one of the giants of our time, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the notorious RBG, whose recent passing has sparked national mourning and means we must work even harder to dismantle institutionalized injustice and fight for equitable opportunity for all. We will now take 1 minute. As we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that the candidates have all agreed to participate under ground rules set for this forum. These ground rules are posted in Eventbrite. Candidates are not permitted to display campaign buttons, t-shirts, signs, Zoom backgrounds, etc. in order to maintain neutrality. We are recording tonight's forum, and the session will be available on our website, lwvbae.org through votersedge.org/ca with links on our social media accounts at lwvbae. There are 3 candidates running for Berkeley City Council District 3. They are Ben Bartlett, Deborah Matthews, and Orlando Martinez. On your ballot, you will be able to choose 1 candidate out of the 3. Now let's go over a few ground rules. Each candidate has 2 minutes for opening remarks. The order was determined by drawing lots. The timekeeper will signal candidates with a green colored window, which will count down the seconds from 2 minutes to 15 seconds to go, when it will turn yellow, and then red when the full 2 minutes is up. As people signed up via Eventbrite, they submitted written questions. If you have additional questions, you may type them in by clicking the Q&A icon. Our volunteers will take the questions and pass them to the moderator. All questions will be screened to avoid duplication and personal attacks. The order of answering the questions will be alternated, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. Again, the timekeeper will signal candidates. There will be no separate rebuttals. However, the candidates may choose to use some of or all of their 1 minute to rebut the response given by another candidate. Following the questions, each candidate shall have 1 minute for a closing argument or statement. Sorry. Now, let's begin with our District 3 candidate forum, where each candidate will give an opening statement of 2 minutes. And we will begin with Ben Bartlett.
Thank you. Thank you, League of Women Voters. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all that you do on behalf of democracy. I want to also thank the voters of District 3 for electing me 4 years ago. And since then, a lot has changed. I've become a father. So as such, I think a lot about the future and leaving my daughter. Environmental collapse, poverty, racism, all of your generation, unless we make change. After my mother was displaced, I ran for office in order to make change. I've been hard at work. After decades, we've passed paid family leave, racial equity in city contracting, a 40-point fire and disaster plan, which is now incorporated into the Measure FF. Approved hundreds of affordable housing and affordable homes, including a $40 million project in South Berkeley. We divested from Trump's border wall and ICE contractors, created separate housing, prefab housing for the homeless. We tackled probate courts and helped raise millions in COVID relief. Over 10,000 of us marched together for Black Lives Matter and helped Council pass the George Floyd Act. Safety, and we want the first investment in safe streets in a generation. And moving forward, with your support, I intend to drive COVID readiness, economic recovery, an affordable housing boom, and a local Green New Deal. I look forward to hearing more about the story of South Berkeley and the story of we. Thanks very much. All those listening.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Deborah Matthews. Oh, unmute yourself, please.
It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you so much for hosting this forum on behalf of the candidates. I have a comprehensive vision for South Berkeley that embraces our history and looks to our future. Our neighborhood deserves leadership that puts South Berkeley first. Berkeley has been my home for 40 years. I love that our city strives to do what's right, even when times are tough. I love the diversity of our community. I love the Thai Temple Sunday brunch, the YMCA where my daughter was on the swim team for several years, and the Berkeley Flea Market. Oh, how I miss the Thunder Drummers and the Circle. I often reflect on the joys of these experiences. We are now coping with the lack of investment in our community, rising housing costs, displacement, traffic, violent crime, and inadequate leadership. I will stop these threats. I will bring dedicated leadership that will get the job done. I am ready to work for South Berkeley and willing to go the extra mile to reach our community goals while learning along the way. My civic engagement complements my real estate expertise with deep understanding of citywide and community issues. As a former housing commissioner, former zoning commissioner, and planning commissioner, I have frequently been a facilitator to diffuse and resolve contentious discussions between residents and applicants. Apart from these strengths of my record as a chair of the commissions, I am one of the few African Americans here in our city, women, who have served in these capacities. I bring my skills and experience along with my passion to address overlooked issues concerning women, such as domestic violence, sex trafficking, and child abuse. When elected, please come knock on my door at City Hall. I will provide in-person meeting time and communicate pride.
Sorry, now we'll hear from Orlando Martinez.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank the League of Women Voters of Berkeley, Albany, and Emeryville for this opportunity to speak with you and, putting this forum together. My priority and commitment to our residents is that their voices will be heard. As your council member, I want to see improvements in social justice, affordable housing, homelessness, and development of underprivileged youth. I have been in construction for the last 12 years of my career, but I have also collaborated and got involved with communities in the past. I grew up in the San Benito County area, and I was fortunate to be a member of the Community Actions Board of San Benito County, which is where I got to see how much change can actually happen when a community works together. One of the things that I'm passionate about of Berkeley is how accepting the people are here. And it's for that reason that I want to tackle the three issues which are my priorities. And that is homelessness and affordable housing, which can lead to a greener Berkeley, development model for our youth, because we're in a time in history where change needs to happen, and I believe it starts with our youth. And lastly, we need to have some accountability for our residents and how their tax money is being spent. So that's what I want to focus on, and I look forward to the remainder of this forum. Thank you.
Now we'll proceed to questions previously submitted. And why don't we start with Deborah with these questions?
Okay.
With the first question. What do you see as the greatest issues that face District 3, and how will you address them?
The main issue and the greatest issue that I think we face is housing in South Berkeley. The need for housing for our homeless, for our low income and our middle income families. And I have a 9-point housing plan that talks about and addresses dismantling historical racism and inequity through reform, welcoming displaced residents to return to Berkeley, protect our vulnerable residents from housing displacement, support small business owners and landlords, and create a South Berkeley African American district here in our community. We have experienced non-investment, disinvestment for more than 50 years. This cannot go on any longer with the type of leadership that our community has had. It is time for a fresh start in South Berkeley. Thank you.
Thank you. And Orlando, could you answer the question?
First of all, I just want to say, well said, Deborah. I have to agree with her, right? Homelessness and affordable housing is a huge issue here in South Berkeley, and you know, it's a continual problem that we've been seeing, and we need to come up with solutions. Now's the time to really get away from, you know, our previous acts, right? And we must really come in with plans like the one I'm proposing, where we partner up with developers and contractors and invite them to really come to Berkeley and invest, because if we invest in modular construction, I believe we can turn this around and really make a difference and affordability for those in need in South Berkeley.
Thank you. And now Ben?
Thank you. I think the three biggest challenges facing South Berkeley going forward are, of course, pandemic recovery and getting through the current COVID crisis, affordable housing, and public safety. So with the COVID, I'm proud to say that our track record on council demonstrates experienced leadership, because we've had one of the best responses in the nation. I'm proud of that. And affordable housing, I'm proud to say that we have sown the seeds now for affordable housing boom. I offer buy right affordable housing. We just got a $40 million affordable project here in Berkeley, and we'll be encoding more affordable housing into that line corridor. We raised over $100 million for affordable housing through Measure OMP and Measure U1. And then also, in terms of modular housing, that's my thing. We created a new model with private developers and prefabricated modular housing for the homeless and supportive housing. And that project's happening going forward on University Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next question, we'll start with Orlando. What is your position on Prop 15, which will increase taxes on commercial properties, and why?
So I think we just have to be really careful with that. Ben just brought up a really good point, and COVID recovery, right? I mean, that's definitely a huge issue. And there's people, business owners and whatnot, who may be the ones who take the burden because of this proposition. So we have to really be careful as we go forward with Prop 15. I'm not saying it's not a good idea, right? I mean, it takes away some of the burden on our local residents who are in need. But you know, we just have to be responsible about it.
Okay, thank you. And Ben?
Thank you. And those are great points. So yeah, I do support Proposition 15, and I've advocated for something like it for a long time. One element which I think is useful to note is that it exempts property owners that own $3 million or less of property. So it is a big corporate owners, right? And you have to realize many of these corporate companies, landowners, they receive windfall tax breaks from the Trump administration. So in a sense, it's economic justice, and we need some way to begin to repair the damage done by Prop 13 and funding California schools.
Okay, thank you. And then Deborah?
Yes, I support Prop 15. And I think one of the things that we must take into consideration is that for many, many years, the tax burden has always fallen on the small property owners. And even though, my opponent says, well, we raised over $1 million with Prop O and Measure M, whatever. The situation with that is that money was not really raised, it was paid for by our property owners. And we have to make sure that we start looking at different avenues and creative ways to protect our property owners so that they are not burdened with higher and escalating property taxes over and over again. So support Prop 15 because I think it will bring about fair and equity in this area.
Okay, now for our next question, we will start with Ben responding. How will you work to address the climate crisis in the city of Berkeley?
Thank you. Yeah, so the climate crisis is something very near to me. My training is environmental law, and that's my background professionally as well, environmental finance. So on that front, I helped pass the natural gas ban in new buildings, electric vehicle readiness, requiring that, promoting the local microgrid and promoting the local renewable energy system, and pushing for an easier way to opt customers in. That's a big move. And then, of course, focusing our housing hubs around transit. So those are some of the things. And going forward, we are in talks right now to do a regional, sort of local Green New Deal to ramp up transportation and renewable energy infrastructure for the city of Berkeley.
Okay, thank you. And Deborah?
Yes, one of the key things for me is that I think that even though with our 2050 measure that we have in place to move climate action forward, we really need to accelerate that now. This whole climate crisis requires immediate action. And I am recommending that we update the City of Berkeley Climate Action Plan, drafted in 2009, to match and exceed the University of California and the State California climate goals to go carbon neutral by 2025 or 2045. Berkeley is falling behind in meeting climate targets. So we really need to focus on making sure that we address those as quickly as possible and bring the Green New Deal to Berkeley. I mean, it's time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Orlando?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe that we're not doing enough, right? We've already passed measures like Measure G, right, which was the initial measure for us to really address the City of Berkeley Climate Action Plan, and to date, not enough has been done. I believe just because we have an expiration date of 2015, everybody's just pushing the buck. So it's time for us to, really focus in and really bring about that change that we need. Specifically, right? We keep increasing city payroll, and where's that money going? That money's coming directly from what the taxpayers are paying for that climate action plan. So we really need to think about this stuff and move forward with some action.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for this next question, we will start with Deborah. Do you support the continued existence of the Here, There homeless encampment? And if so, what will you do to support or oppose the encampment?
Oh, very sensitive issue for all of us. And one of the key things for me, Here There is located in South Berkeley. And like I said in my opening, we are a giving community. We always have been, we always will be. What concerns me about the Here There location is that it is in the most dangerous place it can be. Those Someone is going to, it's just an accident waiting to happen where there will be fatality. That intersection is traveled very intensely. We know that traffic comes through our community, through the heart of our district in that area, traveling at 45 miles an hour sometimes. They have put up barriers to try to protect themselves. I just personally think that the first step is that we need to address it from a safety issue measure, and it doesn't work in that location.
Thank you. And Orlando?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with Deborah. My concerns are the same. It's a very dangerous location. Not only that, I mean, there's littering all over the place, which is not a pleasant view for most of us. I mean, sometimes it's important for us to be compassionate, right? But at the same time, I mean, there's really been no action plan to really do something. We've tried certain things here and there, but we just pass the buck. Oh, it's not my responsibility, and evade the real issue. So I believe that we have to make a change, and as of right now, I'm not in agreement with the location.
Okay. Thank you. And now Ben?
Yeah, so the Here There camp, well, the city has been in multiple lawsuits involving that camp. They're very cleared up. It's definitely a complicated issue, and speaking on the record about it is tricky as well, I gotta say. The camp is beloved by the neighborhoods. Many community members love them. Some hate them, but many love them. And they have their defenders. To their credit, they are a national model for these encampments. They're sober. They've placed many people in housing, many people in housing. They have people who are in wheelchairs and senior citizens in there. And, the overarching radius around it, though, is definitely problematic. And so we're trying to work with it. But according to the law and the federal court case, we have to find another place for them to be. And so that is the challenge. To legally move them, we need to find another location. And we just found out that our major location by the waterfront is not legal. That is the challenge. And so going forward, the real solution is going to be housing.
Okay, thank you. All right. So for the next question, we'll start with Orlando. Do you see gentrification as an issue that faces the district? Please explain your reasoning and what response is necessary.
I don't really see gentrification as an issue. I believe Berkeley at its core is really inviting, right? Me, myself, right? I'm in the process of, remodeling my home myself, and to many, they will believe that I'm gentrifying the community and South Berkeley. But my take is I'm just like anybody else, right? Trying to make a living for my family. And, unfortunately, I live in a very old 1927 home, and we need certain upgrades so we can thrive. So in short, right, I don't think it's a problem.
Okay. All right. I just want to remind the audience, you can put forward your own particular question by submitting things through the Q&A button there. Okay. Okay. Orlando, I guess I shall ask you this question. Do we have data on what local businesses will be impacted by Prop 15?
Hold on.
3 million, what?
Hold on. We didn't answer the gentrification question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. Yes. So I guess Ben.
Yeah, so, with all the respect to Orlando, I just have to disagree. But for me, gentrification is a problem, and it's personal. It's easy sometimes to see it as just a word or as just a movement of people, but when you hone in and look at it closely, you can see the brutality of it. The only reason I ran for office is because my mother was displaced. She and some other senior citizens, all Black people from Berkeley, were forced out of their housing, horrible, cruel conditions. I mean, really stressful. One of them died afterwards. That's why I ran. So gentrification is more than a word. It's about community and being uprooted in your community through forces outside of your control. So I've hit hard on all those topics, from affordable housing to tenants' rights to senior rights, every single thing I can think of to protect people and protect the community.
Okay. Thank you. And now Deborah.
Yes. Gentrification, I think, is a tremendous issue. And being the candidate that has lived here in Berkeley for the longest amount of time, which is 40 years, I have definitely witnessed it firsthand. It is a very painful situation when you watch and see the historical fabric of a community totally be ripped apart. That is why we don't have a Berkeley international flea market at this time. Our community is gone. You don't see the same kinds of interaction that diversity brought to our community, particularly African Americans. I think it is important for us to address it. I think it's important for us to acknowledge it. And I think it's important for us to make sure that we have on our commissions representation by people of color so that we can effectively change the policies here in Berkeley.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, now Orlando, sorry about that little mix-up there. What can the city council members do to help pay the pension funding burden?
I mean, that's a very hard conversation to have, right? Because going back to I feel like I got hammered pretty hard on the gentrification as me being insensitive, right? And that's clearly not the case, right? And taking this towards the pension, right, issue, people work their whole lives to make a living, right? And these pensions are in place because of their efforts. So do they deserve their fair shake to what they were promised? Absolutely. Do individuals also have to be realistic of the exterior circumstances that we're faced with? Absolutely as well. In short, no, you know what I mean? I want to support those who deserve that pension.
Okay, thank you. And now Ben?
Thank you. And Orlando, please, I was not, not beating up on you. I just, we got to come together on this stuff. But about the pension, so listen, this is not an uncommon situation. It's in every state, every jurisdiction. Even corporate pensions are underfunded, and it's an issue. But I stand with working people. I stand with working families. I believe in pensions. This is a deal that you signed up for. And to our credit, though, I will say the city of Berkeley has done a great job. Our bond rating is very high, and we have a plan. We're paying into our pensions, and we're on track to meet our obligations. Will it require some creative budgeting in the future? Yes, it will. But I'm endorsed by the labor unions, and they'll be with me as we figure it out.
Okay, thank you. And now, Deborah?
Yes, there are a couple things I want to say very quickly. And one is that one of the things we need to do also is to look at divesting, making sure that we're divesting from fossil fuel with our pension programs here in California. The other thing is that we need to do is the state of Michigan in 2018 had the same kind of issue that we're going through here in the state of California. And they implemented, and I can't pull up right now off the top of my head, the plan that they brought forward, but they implemented it within a couple of years, and statewide, they saved $2.9 billion. So I think that the city of Berkeley should definitely look at what the state of Michigan has done in the past few years to deal with the issue of pensions and how to start to relieve those. I wish I could think of the name of the plan, but not right off the top right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, Deborah, we'll start with you with this next question. So, South Berkeley streets are in serious disrepair. What is your plan to upgrade South Berkeley's infrastructure?
Well, the first thing is to look at Vision Zero. And that is an excellent plan that was just brought forward. I think it was just approved here in the last year. I attended the presentation for Vision Zero, and what they plan to implement is to make, for the first time, to address really the equity issues of what redlining and non-investment in South Berkeley has done to our infrastructure. And I think making that a priority is the key to start moving in that direction. However, I think we have to be really sensitive as we move forward with this, because, for example, the bike lanes that have been put in on Adeline, they in front of the senior center, it's making it more difficult for the wheelchairs. And I think that area wasn't thought out well in relationship to taking care of the needs of our elders. So I think that we need to make sure that we're doing it really effectively as we move forward.
Thank you. And Ben?
So the street paving issue is robust, right? It's a $50 million problem with a $10 million problem. And so even with that, though, we're able to reverse decades and decades of underfunding with the biggest commitment for street rescaping and repaving in a generation. We did that. Going forward, though, we got to find more money with the Universal Safe Streets program and leveraging community benefits from the Adeline corridor and a new Green Deal to fund new types of pavement, new types of asphalt to get it going.
Okay, thank you. And Orlando?
Well, this is another, coming from a construction background, right? This is another thing that's dear to my heart as well, right? It pains me to see where our infrastructure is to date in South Berkeley, right? And I think the real issue is that, every election, right, new measures come out to supposedly support our infrastructure and whatnot. But at the end of the day, City Council is making certain decisions to address these things. And, as Ben mentioned, right, maybe the funds aren't enough, but that's not a good enough excuse. So we need to be responsible where we invest that money that has been set aside for these issues of infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Ben, this is an audience question. I have lived in South Berkeley for 10 years. and over this time have felt increasingly less safe walking alone due to the mental health challenges of those around me. Do you have a way to work towards a safer district?
That's a really good point. So, without a doubt, there is an increase in people in crisis. We know that our country and our state are in the throes of an economic just meltdown, and there are no services out there on scale for mental health. So, one of the things we can do is through the George Floyd Act that I wrote and passed, is create a special mental health crisis unit to allow these people to wrap these services around people and not have police do it. Therefore, you get better outcomes and really work on them. You know, we also got to go forward now with more and more supportive housing. And again, I'm going to plug Step Up Housing coming up. It's supportive housing. We need more and more of this. And, you know, with regard to the legal landscape, it's hard to put people away. And under COVID, it's almost impossible because it's unsafe in the conditions. So we're stuck in a tight situation right now. We can at least wrap around these people.
Okay, thank you. And Deborah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we need to do is to make sure that we're continually addressing the issue of crime. And thank you for that question. In the last 4 years, with all the violent crime that has continued in our district, we have had from our current council person, 1 town hall meeting addressing crime. That is just unacceptable. And I think that we really need to look at, rather than putting people away and thinking that COVID doesn't allow for that to happen, we need to think about, we must not only think about, we must take action and address the needs of our youth at their critical time in their life, when those who are underserved are the most vulnerable to be fast-tracked into the criminal system, and really address and give them other options and opportunities through job training, through job certification, through handheld education, through mentoring programs. We've got to do something, and we haven't for too many years.
Okay, thank you. And now Orlando.
Yeah, I have to agree with both of them, right? Both touch on really good points. It starts with affordable housing, right? That's a big issue. We need more programs out there that could really address the mental health issues. There's not enough, or there's more people than what there are those able to help, right? So that's issue number one. Number two is, part of the reason why I'm running is because I want to put in place youth programs that absolutely help with this issue, so we get ahead of it before we let it kick down the road into the point where they're adults, right? So these are part of the things that I'm looking to address, and we'll see.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to start with you again, Orlando. This is an audience question of, I'd like to know that our council members live in Berkeley as their primary residence. Where do these 3 live, and do they own other property nearby?
Yeah, well, to answer their first question, right, I absolutely live here in District 3 of South Berkeley. I live right off of Sacramento Street in between Oregon and Russell. And so, do I own another property? No, I wish I did, but I don't. This is all I could afford.
All right, thank you. And Deborah?
I live here in Berkeley, and as I said, I've lived in Berkeley for 40 years, so I'm not going anywhere. I live on McGee Avenue, and what else? What was the other part of that question? I'm sorry. Oh,
Do you own any other property? Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Nearby?
Not nearby, no. I don't own other property nearby.
Okay. And Ben?
Thank you. And I want to say real quickly regarding the town halls. So we had a very large town hall for the community after some criminal incidents. And the after effect was so racist and so uncomfortable that I moved to more targeted meetings. So with certain blocks that were impacted, not to ignore the issue, but just to limit the more base instincts. Yes, I live on near Ashby and Shattuck, and yes, my family does own other property.
Oh. All right. Okay. All right. So let's see. Next question. We'll start with Deborah.
Mhm.
It seems that South and West Berkeley are shouldering the burden of tent encampments in our city. What will you do to ensure that North and East Berkeley do their share to spread the burden out? There are no tent encampments in North or East Berkeley. Why?
Well, I definitely don't have that. Well, the answer to why is, it's the same thing that it is with redlining, not in my neighborhood, right? But one of the key things for me is that I do think and agree with you 100% that this should be something that is burdened by our entire city and not just South and West Berkeley. You are right in your assumptions. This is not something that you think is happening. It is happening, and it needs to stop. We need to make sure that the spaces that are available throughout our city are utilized for encampment. People need to have it, we need to have it diverse, spread out, equity, so that everyone is participating and supporting the needs that are at hand.
Okay, thank you. And Orlando.
I actually have a little bit of a different opinion, right? I mean, why is it, right? It's pretty simple, right? The two most poverty districts are, West and South Berkeley. So, naturally, they've settled here. But to answer your second part of that question, I believe we need to have a solution to solve the problem as a whole, right? I don't think passing the buck, distributing it equally is really a solution. Although I do agree with Deborah that everyone in Berkeley must be cognizant of what it creates for West and South.
Okay, thank you. And Ben?
Yes, this is something that I've talked about repeatedly through the years and voted in favor of it as well. Distributing these assets, right? This distribution on a regional level that's equitable, because it's not fair to South Berkeley and West Berkeley. They're the brunt of this issue, and there are places that are far worse than our district too, and it's a heartbreak. And I've worked with council members, worked with activists, worked with the mayor to come up with ways to distribute and make it more fair. And we've had some successes, but the problem is growing and growing. We're going to keep on working on it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. So I am going to hold for about 10 seconds here and be right back. Okay. All right. One question here then. And we shall start with Ben. What do other cities do to get people housed that Berkeley is not doing now?
Well, I can tell you, I don't think any city does as much as we do. We have all these various forms of affordable housing, temporary housing, tenant support, everything we can think of. In fact, other communities send their people to Berkeley to be housed. They also get sent from institutions every day. So we are doing a lot. You know, Utah does a lot, a housing first model, but they're land rich. And even that program has been criticized as being more of a ruse. So we do more than most. And I think we can do better. And the key way to do better is again, I'm going to plug Step Up Housing, is to lower the cost of making this housing. And my housing goal, the Step Up Housing lowers it by maybe 70%. And I think that can make a difference and be replicated around the region.
Okay, thank you. And Orlando.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with Ben, right? City of Berkeley does a lot to try to address these issues. Is it enough? No. Part of that is because, you know, we're such an inviting community that, you know, it creates this issue. But I mean, I also have to agree with Ben. I mean, this is one of the things that I'm running on, and that is we need more affordable housing to address these issues. And how we're going to do that is through modular construction. I mean, there's huge increase or huge cost savings that can happen by doing this. So, you know, there's always more that can be.
Thank you. And now Deborah.
That's one of the things I think that other cities are doing that Berkeley isn't. We're not building housing, and that's what needs to happen. We need to build housing on our transit-oriented corridors, making sure that we are doing housing for all incomes. We want to make sure we're doing it for very low income, homeless, and our middle income families. The second thing we need to do is to make sure that we're streamlining all our processes as best we can. ADUs needs to have a much more streamlined process in order to serve the needs of the community. Any forms that we can come up with housing, we need to streamline those processes and expedite them. And we need to come together as a community and as a city and say, this is the time that we need to address our housing issue and put the housing and make it a priority and do it first. We spend a lot of time delaying housing, lawsuits against housing, putting special additional costs on housing that need to go into specific funds that are unknown. It's like, let's do the right thing. Build.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll ask Orlando the next question. What is your stance on Berkeley's Measure HH, the utility users tax?
Again, this is something near and dear to me as well. One of the things that I'm running on, voting no on HH, right? And the reason for that is because we can't just introduce these measures and have this broad picture of how we're gonna spend this money, right? There must be a clear and decisive avenue as to how this will be invested. And right now, this measure is way too broad. And so for that reason, I will be voting no.
Okay. And Ben?
Yes, so Measure HH, for those who don't know, this is an increase in utility users tax for 4.5% to 10%. And it establishes a climate equity action fund to support measures to reduce greenhouse gases and pollution. I mean, it's not perfect, but I'm happy that I was able to ensure that there's an exemption for low-income persons and seniors to cover it. But right now, in this context, with the smoke in the air today, we've got to take some aggressive measures to address climate change. And I think, and to Orlando's point, our record for spending on measures is good. We did the same format for the soda tax, and other. We typically have a good group that oversees the spending, and it's usually pretty fair.
Thank you. And Deborah?
I will support Measure HH. After not seeing the sun for a week, that did it for me. Anything that moves us more strongly in climate action change, I am supporting it. I don't think that it is like the go all fix answer, but it definitely is a step in the right direction. It will have my support.
Thank you. Deborah, we'll start the next question with you. What is your stance on Measure II, the Police Accountability Charter Amendment?
Police accountability is incredibly important. And one of the key things that is important to me now is to make sure that we are moving that whole program forward, and that we are making sure that we are doing very key things as we're doing these implementations. One is to make sure that we promote a full understanding of the historical racism that has shaped Berkeley's PD. Secondly, it is really key that we address that any training officer who has a history of domestic violence, connections with white supremacy, or has issues with excessive force, they're no higher. It's a game changer. It's a deal breaker. So these are the kinds of things that I would support, and I do uphold.
Okay, thank you. And Ben?
Yes, it's interesting to point out, there's a South Berkeley connection to this measure, because it was South Berkeley activists 40, 50 years ago that created the first police review commission in the country. And since then, other jurisdictions have upgraded theirs, and ours has been criticized as being weak, or at least people feel that it's weak. So this is a response to that. It upgrades it, creates a professionalized group and a specialized officer to oversee it. And I do support it. I co-sponsored it. I co-authored it, and I'm a big backer of it.
Okay, and Orlando.
Yeah, I mean, I see what the measure's proposing, right? And I agree, and I agree with Ben and Deborah. I think for the most part it tries to do good overall, and like we say, we're a leader here in Berkeley, and that's exactly what this measure's trying to do. So it's not perfect, but yeah, I would have to agree with the both of them.
Thank you. Okay, I think at this juncture, we will end with the questions and commence with ending statements. So before the candidates give their closing statements, I have a few remarks on behalf of the LWV-BAE. Thank you to the candidates for running for office and for your participation this evening. I also want to thank the audience for engaging in our democracy. For further information about upcoming forums, the candidates, pros and cons, and positions on ballot measures, please visit the League's website, lwvbae.org or votersedge.org/ca. We invite you to join the League to help us engage voters and defend democracy. We do so much more than voters registration and education. Visit our website and social media accounts at LWV-BAE. The deadline to register to vote is October 19th this year. You can register to vote online at the Secretary of State's website, sos.ca.gov. Remember to vote by mail or at the polls by Tuesday, November 3rd. This year, we are encouraging voters to vote as early as possible. Please see our website for more information about voting in this election. Now the candidates will make closing statements. We will reverse the order that we began with, and each candidate will be given a closing statement of 1 minute. And this means we shall then start with Orlando.
Thank you. Just want to take this time to thank the League of Women Voters here for Berkeley, Albany, and Emeryville. I also want to take the time to thank Deborah and Ben for their efforts. I truly understand where they come from this, and we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to find ways where we can improve our community. And so I want to applaud them and thank them for that. Additionally, I just want to tell the voters, that I have a little bit of different ideas on how I believe I can accomplish things. And the biggest thing they should know about me is I love the word accountability because I live by it every day, and that's what I will be giving them, my accountability, that I will do the best that I can, and I will follow through. Thank you.
Thank you. And Deborah.
When elected to Berkeley City Council, I will not breach the trust of the South Berkeley residents by running for a higher office. I will be present to vote on the complex issues of housing and homelessness, provide equity and inclusion on our boards and commissions, establish an African American historical district in South Berkeley, honoring the historical legacies of all people of color, addressing direct broadband access with collaboration with nonprofit agencies. I support Governor Newsom's master plan on aging to protect our elders in our community to age in place with dignity and grace. I support providing jobs and certifications for our youth at risk, for anyone who is ready to go to work. I ask for your vote. I ask for your support. I would love to be able to represent you here in South Berkeley. We need a fresh start. Deborah gets it done. Thank you.
And Ben.
Thank you. Generations ago, my family found freedom in South Berkeley. 4 years ago, I made a pledge to honor our past and defend our future. Now we find ourselves in new and challenging times. These are moments that require innovative, experienced leadership. Since then, I've also been passed over 100 laws and policies because I believe that housing is a human right, with justice and fairness for all, protecting our families and investing in our community. Join the Sierra Club, the Democratic Party, Berkeley Firefighters, Alameda Labor Council, Berkeley Democrats, SEIU 1021, Wellstone, John George and Stonewall Democratic Clubs, East Bay Young Dems, Cal Berkeley Democrat, Black Women Organized for Political Action, Berkeley Tenants Union, State Electeds Tony Thurman, Betty Yee, Fiona Ma, Malia Cohen, Assembly Majority Leader Ian Calderon, Supervisor Keith Carson, Emeritus Ciara Dean, Councilmember Susan Wingrad, Cheryl Davila, Roger Robinson, Kate Harrison, Sophie Hahn, Larry Drosty, the entire Berkeley Rent Board, and Southbrook has done endorsing our efforts to make it.
Okay, thank you. So, okay. So even though they can't hear you or necessarily see you, but please join me in a round of applause for all of our candidates here tonight. And thank you everyone for attending. Okay.
Thank you.